San Antonio built an entire city around one tourist trap riverwalk and forgot the other 99% of its residents exist. This sprawling Texas layout covers 465 square miles with the density of a cornfield, forcing 2 million people to drive everywhere while pretending downtown boats represent actual transportation. The city spent decades building highways while its public transit system serves fewer riders than a small European town. The Riverwalk attracts 15 million tourists, but most residents live in sprawl connected by confusing highways. Interstate 35 splits the city economically and geographically, with the west side trapped in 1970s infrastructure while the north gets every new development. The average 26-minute commute is misleading. While many commutes are short, others spend 90 minutes crawling through Loop 1604 traffic. They built Six Flags Fiesta Texas further from downtown than some state borders. VIA Metropolitan Transit runs buses every 30 minutes, if you're lucky, making car ownership mandatory for basic survival. The city's solution to growth is annexing more land, creating a suburban donut with no filling. Property taxes fund highway expansion while sidewalks crumble and bus routes get cut completely. Adelaide calls itself the city of churches, but should be called the city of parking lots. This Australian sprawl champion covers more area than Greater London, despite having 1/10 the population. The entire metropolitan region functions as a giant suburb, pretending to be a city. Central Adelaide looks nice until you realize it's surrounded by 50 kilometers of nothing. The street grid was designed in 1837 for horse carts and hasn't been updated since. Those wide streets now accommodate parking instead of people because that's apparently progress. The parklands surrounding the CBD sound lovely until you try crossing them in 40°C heat with zero shade. Buses run once per hour, and the tram system has exactly 2 lines. The train network radiates from the center like spokes, so traveling between suburbs means going downtown first, adding 40 minutes. A trip from Glenelg to Adelaide Airport takes 90 minutes despite being 12 kilometers apart. Everyone drives, creating rush hour traffic on highways designed for half the current population. New developments like Mawson Lakes promise urban villages but deliver car-dependent subdivisions 20 kilometers from employment centers. Brisbane spent 30 years planning infrastructure and forgot to build any of it. This Queensland capital spreads across 1,340 square kilometers of hills and rivers, creating natural barriers the city refuses to bridge properly. The Story Bridge and Gateway Bridge handle most cross-river traffic, causing permanent bottlenecks, while the city debates building more crossings. The City Cat Ferry looks charming in tourism ads, but moves slower than walking and costs more than driving. Brisbane's bus network is the city's main transit backbone, which tells you everything about urban planning priorities. The busway system moves more people than the train network because successive governments couldn't agree on rail expansion. The single rail line to the airport opened in 2001, meaning Brisbane lacked airport rail until the 21st century despite being a major city since 1842. Suburbs like Springfield and Ripley are 40 kilometers from downtown, with no rail connections planned until 2030. The Brisbane Metro is just buses with extra steps rebranding existing infrastructure instead of building actual solutions. The city's subtropical climate makes walking unbearable 6 months yearly, yet they build suburbs without shade trees or covered walkways. Development happens in flood zones because development continues in flood zones, raising questions about lessons learned from 2011 and 2022. Charlotte demolished its historic streetcar system in 1938 and spent 70 years regretting it. This North Carolina banking hub tore down neighborhoods for highways, creating a donut city where downtown is for working and suburbs for living. The city covers 800 square kilometers with density lower than most American suburbs. Uptown Charlotte has shiny bank towers, but empties after 6 p.m. because nobody actually lives there. The light rail system has 2 lines that barely cover 20% of the metro area. The blue line runs north-south, which helps exactly nobody trying to go east-west. Construction started on the Silver Line in 2017, with completion promised for 2030, meaning a single light rail line takes 13 years to build. The average Charlotte resident spends $13,000 yearly on transportation because the city designed itself around mandatory car ownership. Neighborhoods like Ballantyne are 30 kilometers from downtown with no transit connections. The bus system has been cut repeatedly, leaving low-income residents underserved, while the city builds more luxury apartments uptown. Independence Boulevard was supposed to get light rail but became a highway expansion project instead. They're building the massive River District development without requiring transit access, guaranteeing another 20,000 car trips daily. The city's housing costs skyrocket while it keeps building sprawl, requiring expensive infrastructure extensions. Charlotte spends millions attracting businesses downtown while making it impossible for workers to get there without cars. Jacksonville is America's largest city by area at 840 square miles, using every inch to spread inefficiently. This Florida giant covers more land than Los Angeles and New York combined, despite having 1/10 their population. Jacksonville's consolidation in 1968 created efficiency but encouraged endless sprawl. Downtown empties after business hours like an apocalypse happened. The Skyway automated people mover covers 8 blocks, making it possibly America's most useless transit system. The JTA bus system runs hourly, if at all. Communities like Durbin Park are 40 kilometers from downtown with 0 transit plans. The city keeps annexing land and building suburbs while existing neighborhoods decay. Arlington has infrastructure from 1960 serving 2,024 populations. The solution to traffic is widening US 295, adding lanes to a beltway that circles 100 kilometers. Dallas demolished every historic neighborhood and replaced them with parking craters. This Texas sprawl covers 880 square kilometers, making it larger than New York, despite having 1/3 the population. Downtown Dallas has impressive skylines but 0 street activity. They built Clyde Warren Park over a highway, creating a vital public space to attract people downtown. Dart Light Rail serves park and ride commuters, not neighborhoods. The system has America's longest average trip distance because everyone lives 40 kilometers from work. Neighborhoods like Frisco require 90-minute commutes downtown. The North Dallas Tollway is a heavy financial burden on residents who pay $15 daily reaching jobs. Southern parts of the city have been neglected for decades, lacking grocery stores and transit, while northern areas get every amenity. The Trinity River was supposed to become Dallas's Riverwalk, but remains an empty floodplain. They're building massive developments like Legacy West and suburbs, while downtown struggles. Dallas housing costs rival coastal cities despite sitting on endless flat land because sprawl is expensive. Kansas City sits on 2 state borders, using that as an excuse for terrible planning. This Midwestern sprawl spans 840 square kilometers across Kansas and Missouri with no coordination. The city demolished its streetcar system in 1957 and built highways through established neighborhoods, creating permanent divides. Downtown has a free streetcar covering 3 kilometers, making it a tourist attraction, not transportation. The Metrobus was slashed by 25% recently, leaving low-income residents underserved while subsidizing suburban development. Kansas and Missouri sides have separate planning departments competing against each other. Companies play both states for subsidies while residents pay for infrastructure duplication. The stadiums are 15 kilometers from downtown because the city prioritized parking over accessibility. Communities like Olathe are 40 kilometers from downtown with no transit. The solution is widening I-435, the beltway spanning 135 kilometers. Kansas City spends millions on downtown revitalization while building suburbs guaranteeing car dependency. The city has more lane miles per capita than almost anywhere, yet traffic worsens yearly because induced demand is real. Birmingham, UK, was the Industrial Revolution workshop but became Britain's monument to post-war planning disasters. The city demolished Victorian neighborhoods for the Inner Ring Road, a concrete collar choking the center. The Bullring was replaced with a brutalist shopping center in 1964 that locals hated so much they demolished it 40 years later. Broad Street became a nightclub strip surrounded by empty towers and parking lots. The city has more canals than Venice but made them inaccessible until recent renovations. New Street Station is Britain's busiest rail hub outside London but connects to a pedestrian environment hostile to human existence. The city tore out its tram system in 1953 and only recently built a single line covering a metro fraction. The metro runs to Wolverhampton, but not Birmingham Airport, requiring buses to connect a major airport to Britain's second-largest city. Suburban sprawl across the West Midlands created car dependency in a country famous for transit. The solution to congestion is the Clean Air Zone charging scheme, penalizing residents without providing alternatives. Birmingham spent decades building ring roads, while Manchester invested in trams and regeneration. Drop your worst city planning disaster in the comments. For more content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hype this up.